What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome back, and welcome to the 10th episode of Pure Alpha. Look at that, man! 10 episodes, 20 weeks, basically, maybe plus or minus a little bit.
Hell yeah, man. We're kicking. We're
Yeah,
firing on all cylinders.
yes, sir. How you
Can't be
been?
X. Not even
Oh
to
man,
mention Hedron. Holy shit.
yeah, it's a little crazy out there, right?
Holy shit. Hopefully you weren't hoping for a bull market.
Yeah, God forbid you expect to make money here in crypto. Come on,
Right.
we're here for the
You're
tech,
supposed to
baby.
lose, right? That's what the name of the game is in crypto. You come in to give your money to other people.
I mean, that's why I thought I was here.
Kidding, everybody. Kidding.
Oh man, but yeah, how you been, man?
Oh, I've been doing good, man. I took like a week off. I'm back. I'm fresh. I'm looking forward to this. Yeah. Just had a lot of like clarity and thoughts, while I was gone and coming back and looking at the charts. I mean, I'll have you say it for me.
Hmm.
You can objectively say that we called the top on the pulse chain side of things,
Hmm.
um, with very good accuracy, and so we just had to let everything play out, right?
Yep.
It's just a matter of waiting and for the market. The downside takes time, and then RH stuff when it pumps hard, and you
Oh
kind of
yeah.
get left behind. So.
Yeah.
Um,
What was I gonna say? Yeah. Not only like definitely behind the scenes where we called the top pretty well on the 12-cent top, but like we were also live during it too. It was just kind of funny as well. Even though we didn't say it
True.
on stream as much, like we figured it out after the fact, but we just happened to be live as it was happening with RH Max, which I think is funny.
Oh yeah, the testnet V3 for sure, dude. That
Yeah,
was, dude. That run up,
that
man.
was fun.
We were live. Got to see it go to like up. It was like up 2.5 cents in like an hour. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, man, let's see who's in the chat. Let's say hi to everybody.
For
Keza,
sure.
oh man, be careful, Axis. He's gonna make some clips, man. Don't he's gonna start pumping out clips of us.
Big shout out to you for doing that, man.
Yeah,
He's doing good work
absolutely.
on Twitter. hmm
Hey, we got cryptographics in the house. Trade Bra,
Trade
Aggie
bra, what's
P.
up, man?
Yeah,
Red Squirrel, what up,
well,
brother?
always. What is up, Corey Geary? Oh,
Huge
man,
support
dude,
from Corey Geary and Hex Mining Hobby.
absolutely.
What's up, dudes?
Dude, have you seen his YouTube shorts lately? He's been putting some high production YouTube shorts out lately.
Oh,
I've
really?
been enjoying
Yeah, no, I have
watching.
to
Yeah,
check that
yeah,
out.
they're really good. Yeah,
I
they're
have
really
been
good.
away for a week, so
Yeah,
I will have
you
to
have
be
some
updating
content to
my
catch up.
feed quickly. Yeah,
Hex
things move
Marty Holiday,
fast.
what's up? Yep. Oh, we got a bunch of people in here. Let's see. Yep. Hexagon Contractor, Pulse Former. It's good to see everybody. I appreciate you guys showing up. I know we usually do this on Sunday, but hey, it's a nice Thursday afternoon.
We won't be able to do it this Sunday because we're going to be live doing our LP course. So I figured, let's get something in this week. I know it's been a while,
Yep.
so
Give the people some juicy info. Give them our opinions because a lot's been happening, man. I think at least for me, I'm feeling like a kind of like a sigh of relief, where like some of the pressure is off. Like the last couple of days, it was like pretty bearish and like a lot of pressure on price, and like it was everybody was kind of feeling it. And now I feel like it's like that light that like we haven't recovered obviously, but it's like we're recalibrating to like this new level, this new norm a little bit. That's what it feels like to me.
hmm. You're talking in terms of like prices on a lot of these assets, or
Yeah, prices, but also just like a lot of the conversations or like a lot of the contentious conversations are kind of dying down because we've kind
Mm,
of talked it out, and then they like no one's really talking about it because it's already been said, and the chips are kind of going where the the chips are falling where they're going to fall in terms of like the conversation, but also like I think that's kind of reflected in price a little bit too.
yes, I would say that within the last couple days, prices have started to slow down on their
Hmm.
downside action. We're kind of starting to see some weakening of the trend, so to speak,
Yep.
on all sides of the coin. hmm from anywhere from like, even on the EX price, it's made like almost a weekly bottom here on it hasn't made new lows in it's almost 7 days, so that's a positive, right? And if
It
there's
does
nothing below
feel
to sell into.
it does feel a little bit like the 1.7 cent local bottom previously, a little bit like it
Mhm.
feels kind of similar where there it was pretty hectic on that way down, and then there was just kind of this chop that was boring for a little bit.
Yeah, so a couple things here on the ETH pair. So this is the 0.7 level that You know, some of the brightest minds in crypto in terms of like trading, like legacy trading coming into crypto. These guys like Crypto Sniper and others have called for the 0.7% for a long time. You know, if I dug around in my Discord data, we could go back to Discord last year. I think it was in November or something. I posted a chart that we were either going to go to 10 cents or we were going to go to 0.7 of a cent. And you can you know stand up for that too. It was like a crazy thing to say that, you know, that's how volatile it was going to be. It was either going that low or that high.
Yep.
And shit, now we've done both. We've done a
both. I was gonna say both happened.
We went to 10 plus, and then we came down to 7/10. So it's freaking fascinating. You know, I do believe that a lot of the downside action is because how much dilution has occurred because of Pulse Chain. Like, I don't believe that if there was no Pulse Chain, the idea of the word sacrifice would have never been planted. That seed would have never been planted into people's brains, and so then we might not have actually seen that liquidity extraction from the market, and that could have been a totally different circumstance for us now in terms of price. We might have not went as high in price, but we might not have went as low in price.
Yeah.
Hard to say, but you know, now we're in this new paradigm where you have two hexes. You have a Pulse Chain layer 1 coin. You have the Pulse X coin, and then you have the incentive token, and then you have these other ancillary type coins like Icosa and Hedron, and then they get the staking pools tokens like Maximus DAO, and all these different things. And then outside of that, you have secondary and third party coins too that's trying to support it. And what you haven't seen enough of is real viral adoption of any of it yet, which means that you're super early, and it's just early money taking profit and giving us opportunities at prices that, you know, obviously will be long gone after the bull market actually kicks off, right? So I know somebody here said famous favorite Axe's words, don't get left behind. What you repeated last 12 to 18 months. It's true though, you know, don't get, you know, there was opportunities in there. You know, people in the Hex community say, you know, don't trade this or that, but you know, if you just didn't do anything, I mean, there's the staking is an option, right? But I think the traders have shown that they've won the battle over the last 600 days, and there's been so much opportunity there. And if you've been listening to anything that we've been saying, like everything's been on the table and in different time frames. So, you know, I'm just looking at everything right now, and like in terms of like just simple price action on Pulse, it's looking like it's starting to form like a weakening of the trend. It's starting to slow down, but not to say that the bottom's in. It's likely not in, but like there's a lot of things outside of our H ecosystem that is really determining where this shit goes, you know, midterm.
Man, how much I wish crypto was just completely isolated from it all. How nice would that be?
It would be pretty nice.
Yeah.
But what we have to look at is, you know, we were talking before the stream, kind of about gas prices and how much and what that looks like now versus when we were in Pepe zone, where Pepe was mooning, and
that was a weird time. And end stage bull market vibes in the middle of a downtrend. That was quite
how's that old saying
experience.
Like the most explosive bull moves happen in the middle of a bear or something like that.
So. That was crazy. Oh, hey, Hex Mighty Hodler, I appreciate that, man. Appreciate the work. Keep smashing it. Appreciate that. Thank you for the $30 super chat, man. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you. But yeah, man, I agree with all that. And my kind of opinion is, you know, actually this is one of the first times I've really felt the, you know, felt the pain a little bit. Like on most of the other downturns, I've been fine. It hasn't really bothered me. But this was the first one where I was like, whoa, I actually feel a little on edge here. This is kind of interesting to take note of the emotions and how psychologically note like how these new levels have affected my mentality. Not to say my plans have changed necessarily, but it's just like, okay, I've entered a whole new territory from my personal crypto experience, and it's going to be interesting to see how both I behave, but how the market behaves, because, you know, we as a RH community, Hex community, haven't seen this kind of stuff before. And I'd say a lot of this is unprecedented too. With we talked about this a little bit in your private video with Bob. the other night, how crypto as a whole is in a completely new macro context from, pretty much money is abundant and cheap, and now money is scarce and rare due to, no printing, higher interest rates, etc. So, so it's going to be interesting to see how crypto as a whole performs, but also how an emerging blue chip performs under that pressure, because no current blue chip, Bitcoin or Ethereum, has had to traverse such a difficult such difficult economic conditions to prove itself. That Hex has to, for it to prove itself to everybody as a blue chip, which I think we both agree it has the potential to do so.
And I don't think it's a good look if like Ethereum Hex were to die.
Same.
I just don't think that's in the cards for EHEX. People asked me the question today on Corey Costa's stream earlier today that is EHEX gonna make an all-time high again? And I'll make a case for that in a minute. But because we were talking about the dollar and the macro environment that we're in now, crypto mostly existed in a world where federal funds rates, which is the cost of money and the cost to borrow, was at like historically low levels for extended periods of time, which meant that there was excess money. Money was easily available for people to use for any purpose. And what it did was it was added leverage to the system. It allowed crypto to pump to crazy new levels like every few years and created that 4-year cycle phenomenon. And some people think that that's over. Some people think that that's still in the cards. But what we can really count on here is just looking at what the technicals are saying. So like on the weekly chart here, this is the dollar index. All these yellow circles really represent huge breakdowns in the dollar, which also signified huge rallies in cryptocurrency. So like this period here in 2016 was an initial rally out for Bitcoin, and then this here was the 2017 bull run where the dollar just collapsed, basically leading into January of 18. And then this bottom that formed here was actually right around the February of 18 when crypto kind of topped, right? It topped in 17. Bitcoin went to 20K. It was in December, and then it collapsed back to I want to say 10 to 12K, and then bounced back to 17K. And then by end of January, alts had their final run, and then that was it pretty much. And then now here we are. The dollar had this huge revival at that period. Then again, fast forward to this moment here, it was around the COVID collapse of March of 2020, and then the dollar collapsed again, which was also a tremendously good time for cryptocurrency. Obviously, that was the 2020 through 2021 bull run. And so we're here now. Like this was the last fall, October and November of 2022. There was a blow off top on the dollar. It's now come down, tested for a double bottom, and then we had this huge rejection now. What happened here was Bitcoin bottomed around 15K and then rallied all the way to $30,000. Ethereum also held higher lows, never made a new low after 850 and went higher as well, up to that a little bit over 2,000 level. And then now it's been kind of paused. It's holding its levels really well in the face of all the adversity of the SEC chasing down Coinbase, Binance, naming a bunch of things as securities and creating uncertainty in the market. Meanwhile, big companies like BlackRock are now just applied for a Bitcoin ETF, which is bullish for cryptocurrency.
That's crazy.
One of the biggest, most nastiest organizations out there in terms of size and strength and might is actually going to take on this whole ecosystem. They're going to be like, look, their bags are probably already packed. They're the ones that was probably buying the Bitcoin when it was going up here while the dollar was tanking. Looking at the opportunity, it's in the face of everybody now, and at some point they're not going to take the crap anymore, the uncertainty, and it's going to come back to blow back in Gary Gensler's face, man. It's not just him, it's the current US governing administration and other things that's factoring into the kind of the pressure put on, but at the same time it continues to hold its levels so well. Yeah, Bitcoin's down like $5,000 off its local high, but it's up $10,000 off its low, so it's like holding very well in the face. And now today we had this huge breakdown on the dollar, and so it's showing its signs. Like if the dollar comes down here in the next weeks and falls below, retests and resumes lower, this is going to be very, very good for crypto. At the same time, it's lagging behind. If it's lagging behind the stock market. The stock market's already broken out. This is an index of indexes, so it's like all the indexes combined. So crypto's lagging behind. This risk is on in terms of stocks, and it's only a matter of time until this pressure cooker like explodes for cryptocurrency. And all we need is one thing, I don't know, whether it's a good outcome from the SEC, the SEC XRP case, or like this BlackRock ETF, or some other thing we don't know, some new innovation in DeFi. Something is going to push it. Some narrative is going to be developed.
Yeah, and it really does not take much monetarily to push up our stuff at the very least, but it doesn't take much to flip sentiment. Like when things move and they start to move, like pretty much everything in the past just gets forgotten, and it's like you just find some way to get on the train because it's left the station, and it's very very dip. You're fighting for the dips after that once it forcefully leaves. I mean, I remember when in the 1.7 cent low to the 12 cent high, like that flipped on a dime. It was pretty depressing down in that local low, and then it just ran up basically 10x from there on a relatively fast timeline. Now, of course, obviously, we've retraced further from there, but I would not be surprised if we see similar price action reversal and sentiment reversal, both on this chart, but on the whole Pulse Chain ecosystem and all of the assets, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look how they're all bonded in liquidity, all that money, no matter where it's coming from, which asset it's going to, is all going to end up in the same pot, basically. So everything's going to get pumped, but more importantly than that, everything is going to be backed by the same pool of stables, Bitcoin and ETH, which is, I think, more important than necessarily which pot it goes into, but the fact that it's being shared by everybody. Because really what the thing that's giving all this value is like how much redeemable money is in the liquidity pools. So if we're able to have multiple avenues to get more stables, ETH and Bitcoin into our section of the crypto space, that gives us more, it just makes us stronger. It makes us more valid, if that makes sense.
The biggest thing you said, that's the most important thing for people to understand, is something that we don't take lightly, and we touch on like at length in the LP course, which is the bonded liquidity of Hart's law on Uniswap V2, and how all of Hex's price performance prior to the top of 56 cents happened mostly on Uniswap V2. Understand that Uniswap V2, the dynamic of an infinite range like that in a common pool, is what gave Hex such pumpamentals. And when it was binded mostly to Ethereum in a bull market where Ethereum was rising in price consistently, it was always dragging Hex up with it. And so what we did is on Pulse Chain, we recreated that situation again for people, but now you're binding the liquidity of Pulse Chain, Pulse X, Incentive Token, like the Hexes, and they're all going to go up and down together. Like they're all generally the same pattern where they like do this, like the sloping M pattern. Like it's not easy, it's not hard to see it in both of these charts, in all of these charts, So it's like, something to keep in mind is like the importance of Hart's law in our ecosystem, and the deliberate use of it to try to, if one does well, they all do well, right? The reason why we have, I don't know if you want to then dive into the V1 V2 situation again for a refresher.
Oh yeah, okay. So I get confused on the V1 V2 and then like V2 V3. There's like a bunch of different versions of what's going on. But yeah, so V1 V2 on PulseX. Basically, easiest way to think of it, V1 is only farms or no fees, only buy and burn. V2 is buy and burn and fees. So originally, the way the plan was supposed to go for PulseX is that with every trade, there's like a 0.23% fee associated with it, and a percentage of that went to the buy and burn, and a percentage of that went to the people who provided liquidity. There was basically an error in the code where 100% of the fees went to the buy and burn and none to the liquidity providers. So originally we thought if you provided liquidity, you would be earning fees in the background. And if you were in a farm, you would be earning incentive token and fees at the same time. However, only people in the farms were earning any kind of APR because they were earning the incentive token. Everybody else was giving all of their coins away for the buy and burn. And so Richard launched V2, which essentially fixed that problem where only a percent goes to the buy and burn, and liquidity providers earn their fees. So what that's created is a dichotomous liquidity environment where V1 is basically only used for farms. So if you want to earn the incentive token, you go to V1, but you're giving 100% of your fees away. And then in V2, no farms currently exists. So, and I would probably guess there won't be if I had to take a guess. But for all the other projects like Hedron, Icosa, Maximus, and all the other, you know, protocols will get you liquid loans, earn, fiat, famous, etc. If they want liquidity on PulseX, they're going to go to the V2 side because that's where you can actually earn fees from your liquidity, and you should be earning fees. That's the reward you get for the risk of taking on the risk of impermanent loss. So in terms of like what's actionable for you guys, if you want ink, find the pools in the farms, but don't do any V1 liquidity providing outside the farms. If you want to do like hexahedron, icosahedron, any exotic pairs, all of that, it goes to V2 basically.
Mm-hmm. And then I'll just piggyback off that and just remind everybody of what this does, why it's set up that way, and how it's not an accident. So V1 launched as a place for basically for the admins of PulseX to control and drive the future forward for the protocol. If the biggest, most voluminous pairs exist on V1 and they're incentivized via the high APR that incentive token provides, that's good for the buy and burn of PulseX, which is good for the price of Pulse and PulseX because PulseX is the most tightly bound coin to Pulse chain. So PulseX and Pulse are like twin coins where like if the goal is to pump the price of the whole ecosystem by Hart's law, then you would take any exotic pair from the V2 pools and bring it over to the farms on V1 as an incentive to also, you might be giving up the volume bonuses from just like regular LPing on V2, but you'd be getting the ink in return. But what you'd be doing is you'd be pumping the price of PulseX because you're bringing all those users and all that volume onto V1, so that it can effectively be used by the buy and burn. I think it's important to know because it's like one of the most tricky things that no one ever let us know ahead of time, right? And now what else don't we know about PulseX? Well, we know there's no limit orders yet. We know that there's other probably things coming down the pipe that we don't see or we've forgotten, and we don't like
no pools.
No pools. Oh yeah,
no single-sided staking. Yeah.
Which this is all extra gizmos and gears that can be brought online at different times after the prices stabilize. And so I think we haven't really seen the full scope of what is planned for PulseX, and that to me is exciting.
Yeah. Well, so I still don't know like how I feel whether what happened with V1 or V2 is a good or bad thing, and that like of course it was a mistake at first, but this little extra game mechanic, in addition, this extra game mechanic with the buy and burn and the ability to siphon off an ecosystems or like a small community's liquidity or the fees from that community by giving them the incentive token and then putting that back into the whole ecosystem, I actually think that's an incredibly cool mechanic. Like independent of what you think about the mistakes or pivots of V1 and V2, I actually kind of like that mechanic for a lot of reasons. I'm going to go a lot more in depth on what this means in the course, but like the buy and burn, and especially heavy buy and burn with the pools with the most volume, essentially siphons value from the entire blockchain and puts it into the main bucket, which is the Pulse chain PulseX stuff.
So I'm seeing like some cool comments here between like Max and Cryptographics, and they're making funny comments about something that's actually pretty interesting to me. So like,
well, before we get into that, let's get this clown's opinion on it. What's up, buddy? Oh, you're muted.
Clown, huh? Parade of clowns, man. What's going on?
Not much, man. Good to have you. I'm glad you're here, man.
3 clowns on a cam.
Yep, 3.
Just don't say teacup. I'm good, man.
Yeah.
What's I was listening, but you have a specific question, like what?
No, we just want you in the conversation, man. You bring a great perspective, and we want it here.
Let's clownify it, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
Who's got the makeup? Somebody bring out the makeup.
I got a clown nose here somewhere, man. I'll put it on for you. So I really am a clown.
Oh, you
So now
I knew it.
So now what I went when I now I can really stream and compete with the Foos, right?
Right. Oh, I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's perfect. Kaiser, where you at? Took that.
So all right, let's get back to focus here.
Yeah.
So this is good. This is good. He's like, RH Max says nobody wants yield in this market condition. It's much easier to wallow in sadness and declare RH ecosystem dead. Please turn off the money printers and go home. And then Graphics is like, Max, I unplugged my printer when Pulse Chain launched and bought stock in BlackRock. Bitcoin ETF to the moon. It's funny, but it's like, look, the RH ecosystem is standing on the shoulders of Ethereum, and Ethereum, whether you want to admit it or not, is directly correlated and tied to Bitcoin. So if we need to get over that whole, like, Pulse Chain cannot stand on its own, period. There's no debating that. That's just the facts. Like, it cannot stand on its own, and I'm not saying it won't one day do that, but right now, as it stands, we're 100% relying on the liquidity that comes across that bridge from Ethereum, period.
Yep.
And so if the Bitcoin ETF is the catalyst for the next wave of the bull market, great. If it's going to be an XRP thing, great. It doesn't matter what it is, when it comes, it's going to come. You know, that's the main focus here, is that, like, look outside of the ecosystem and admit, like, be honest about, like, where Pulse Chain is. Like, yeah, it's got a lot of potential, but it just doesn't have the user adoption that we need for this thing to really go viral and blow up yet, but it may.
Fake it till you make it.
Yep. Well, we got some good news in that I think Coast launched their fiat on-ramp for USDC, the beta for that. So I think it's on. I think it's still technically on Ethereum, but, like, progress is being made
on Ethereum. I think is what I think that's out, right? So that works.
Yeah,
you can bring money in.
So that's a good step in the direction of being able to be self-sufficient. But you're right, we're not there yet.
Right. Okay. So remember that stuff, and just remember that a lot of this hinges on Bitcoin and ETH doing well. So that's why I'll continually, you know, especially in my private group, be talking about Fed funds, Bitcoin, Ethereum. What's the stock market doing? What's precious metals doing? Like that stuff matters, especially in these times when it's indecision. You know, and I showed you earlier the dollar chart. Look, the stocks are broken out. Crypto's lagging behind. US dollar broke down at the same time. It's a complete inverse correlation. So, like, this is telling you that risk is coming back on and into the market. For how long, we don't know, but it's a good setup, and it's just crypto's holding well in times of uncertainty and pressure on it. So it's like everything's boiling up for some big thing. Okay, so now that I've gotten that out of the way, I did want to mention this. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to put something soothing out for anybody but hurt. Over Pulse Chain isn't ready to fly on its own yet. So what L1 do we know of that was never affected by what happened with Bitcoin and Ethereum? Which L1 mooned without them ever? Which one? Because I don't know.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, so I think it's really the statement is a statement about crypto in general at the moment. Maybe it's changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it could change, but it's going to change from the users that come in and see the stuff that's actually innovative. Like, we always have this conversation, Crispy, about, like, when is it going to be the Amazon of blockchains? When is there going to be that next big jump, that next big breakthrough, and, like, give the world a reason to adopt cryptocurrency? Like, we've lost all that in the chase for mad gains. Not to say that mad gains can't come, but like how much true innovation is in any of this? You know, Ethereum and Bitcoin really did it, right? Hex was the next big thing, and now Hex has been chopped to 10,000 pieces because of the dilution of all these other sacrifice phases and coins and things, right? So now we have to pick up the pieces, and we really need a new wave of money to come in. And what we're going to be relying on is the huge market of Bitcoin to do it for us. It's already broken out on Bitcoin dominance. You can see here, Bitcoin dominance is broken out. This is usually a signal of, so it was trapped underneath this resistance for 637 days. It's now recently broken out, retested, and resumed off that level. This is the hallmark of the beginning of a bull run. Is when when people flush out of all the altcoins and they start to come back into Bitcoin. Or in this case, maybe it's just big money like a BlackRock or someone coming in and basically saying, look, the supply on Bitcoin really is limited. A lot of it's lost or gone or held by Satoshi, and it's just running thin. And it's a huge, but multi-billion-dollar market, and it's a trillion-dollar market almost, right? It's like, what is it, 400 billion or something?
You subscribe to this being a cup and handle.
Looks like a big W pattern, like
W for the win.
W. Let's go.
Reverse Bart.
And then you got the bull flag and then the breakout. So, but okay, so that I got that kind of stuff out of the way. Any lasting thoughts on the macro stuff? I know we kind of just briefly touched on it before I move on to something I wanted to show you about PulseX.
Nope. Good on my end.
All right, so this is what I wanted to show you guys. This is Hedron on PulseX, and this kind of goes back to, oh shit, why did I do that? It basically goes back to the whole who can pull the levers on PulseX, right? And like how are they going to drive volume and users around? And it's via the V1 V2 pools, which we touched on before. Now look at how on V1, Hedron, any of these Hedron pools, they're not offered in the farms. So you can see that there's only like $34,000 of liquidity on Hex Hedron here, and then like another $4,600. So that's a combined $40,000 of value on the V1 pool. So if you flip over to the V2 pools, this is where your exotic pairs are going. You can see there's almost $500,000 of Hex Hedron and $176,000 of Hedron wrapped Pulse and $25,000 of Hedron PulseX. And that's all happening on V2 because that's where those guys are going to get paid to provide liquidity on this, like what I would call right now an exotic pair, something outside of the realm of just Pulse, PulseX, Hex, and Ink.
Yeah. Oh, I was going somewhere with that, with the buy and burn and the migration of that. Let me think.
One thing too with that is that you can use any of these pools on this main page, and it's automatically going to order route through whatever is the most efficient route. So there was no loss in terms of like extra cost to do this, to switch between V1 and V2. It's always going to tag the cheapest route because that's what the routing protocol does.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say. The wild card in all of this is the incentive token in itself. Go ahead, Christian.
I was going to ask a question about that. Are you saying that when I'm doing a swap on V1 or V2, they're auto routing together now? Because what I've seen up until recently, I've started to see some of them look exactly the same, but up until recently, there've been a big difference between them, like sometimes 50% difference. And
really?
Yeah. So it'd be good news. I just need to validate for myself too, because what I've been doing is if I'm going to do any type of swapping, I look at both V1 and V2, make sure I get the best
please
price.
do that. Don't just take the word somebody on the internet says. That was my understanding of it.
It was mine too in the beginning.
Yeah, because I remember checking like the PulseX pair specifically, and maybe a couple others, and it seemed like it was the same price on V1 and V2. I didn't dig much deeper. I should though. I should go check. I can't right now.
I'm down in the shit coins doing it, so it might be a difference between
max slippage.
Blue chips and other ways. But but I say the shit coins, but what I mean are popular ERCs that I brought over to Pulse Chain.
Yeah. Well, definitely if you're doing a big order, guys, check V1 and V2 just in case. I don't think we've gotten any really see. I would like some kind of documentation or like a white paper for all of this stuff, just to have like clear stuff to reference. But it is what it is. But what I was saying before is like with the incentive token kind of being the wild card, it's like once any kind of utility is given to it, if any utility is given to it, and it's like a pretty juicy one, I mean, it all of a sudden becomes like an honor for an exotic pair to be like exalted to a farm status, because now that community is able to use their liquidity to plug into whatever utility was given to the ink token, right? So it's like your community gives up your fees. In return, you get this scarce token that unlocks XYZ in the Richard Heart community. I think that's a really cool dynamic and kind of actually fair in a lot of ways. Where it's like you give your liquidity fees to the ecosystem, but in return you get the keys to some special thing, some utility because of it.
Alrighty.
That fractal's played out pretty well.
Yeah, I was gonna say like this fractal. So this is like the Bitcoin 2019-2020 fractal from its peak from the $14,000 peak down. I mean, it played a very similar pattern out, and now this actually came right down to that level. If you zoom in here, you can see 6.4 tenths of a cent, and bam, we hit that. Now we're trying to form support. It's also on the bottom of the channel here, where it was support here. Now it's support here. So, but this channel is mostly based off the tops. So, yeah. So that's it. Looking like, you know, if this plays out September of next year, we're breaking out.
Oh, like big, like all-time high breakout.
The other thing I wanted
what's it giving us? Oh, you there?
Oh, all-time high breakout, probably sometime around.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Somewhere around like 2024, end of 2024, going into 25, it breaks out.
Cool.
So yeah, that's an interesting thing to keep an eye on. I did want to say too, like these huge capitulation events like this, they you can see them in other places. So like this move up and down, right? So this was like the stock split moment, right? We bottomed on right here on price. Price ran up.
Can you hear me, Axis? I think we're losing you a little bit. Hello?
Well, we can freeze too. Just freeze.
Yeah. Can you hear him? Can you hear him, Crispy?
No, I cannot. I can hear you.
Okay,
though.
I think he's fine. Okay.
I can hear you. Some people. Yeah, some people in chat were saying.
There we go. Okay. Cryptographics access not alive. Not live. That's pretty funny.
It's all over. Go home.
Yeah. But anyways, why don't you give us your little kind of synopsis on what you've been seeing, Crispy man?
Man, I've been everywhere doing everything. I like some people have been talking in the chat here. It does look like V1 V2 are a lot closer than they were. So I can see that. But still some differences between them. So Axis is probably right about that. No, I'm glad to see it because I know I could have mistakenly screwed up a couple times, you know.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Yo.
All right,
he's alive.
Hey, Axis is alive.
Okay, so where was I?
There we go.
I was basically going on about this stock split, right? And so when have we seen this before? I'm just going to give one example, which is Tesla. This happened last year. I've said it before, but everyone needs reminders in moments of despair. They announced a stock split here. The price ran up on Tesla by 50%, which is huge for the stock market. And then there was a period of time where it kind of like chugged down to the side, and then there was the big capitulation to new lows after that moment. And macro was not helping that case at all. But then you get the violent recovery rally, right? So it's like a wave one. Then you get a bull flag, wave two, wave three, and we're in wave three now for Tesla. So compare that to what's going on in Hex. They announced the stock split, so to speak. Price ran up going into testnet V3. There was a sideways and down action. the stock split happens or the fork happens for Pulse Chain, and then you get the capitulation to new lows. So we're kind of like repeating that. Now, if it does recover here in short order, you'll get a nice explosive move up to, like, let's say, this is just ballpark, like let's say around 3 cents, 3 to 5 cents, and then some sort of like a consolidation bull flag pattern, and then you get a second leg up potentially. If it plays out like the way that did. Now, it could happen multiple ways. You could even have like just an explosive move all the way back to this level.
Can you place that Tesla fractal over the hex chart? Is that possible?
That's a good idea. Doesn't look very good on here, does it?
Oh, there we go.
So it's different time frame, of course, but and this is a lot of manipulation with the overall. So I wouldn't like say like the price action necessarily matters, but you can see the general pattern is the same. So what you do here is you take this just for general pattern recognition, and then you copy this out like this, and then you could compare them. You can see the similarity, right? So that now we're waiting for this general, because this asset moves a lot stronger in both directions than Tesla does as a multi-billion-dollar stock. Like, so you'd be looking for something like this essentially over months of time, right?
Yeah. And James Harville brings up a good question. Wouldn't the stock split be from when Pulse Chain first announced? And kind of, but the V3 was the big thing that kicked off. Like, hey, Pulse Chain is actually now officially around the corner.
This whole move on Hex was hype based on testnet V3.
Yeah.
Now, at this time, to be frank, I actually thought that Hex would hold its levels better. I did not expect this type of a capitulation down to 0.7 of a cent. I thought this bottom was in personally, but I was wrong, right? And so it's just more opportunity for those with extra funds to come back in. Do I have any doubts about the future of EHEX? No, I do not, because you can get these types of situations where, first of all, right now I'm looking at GUE. It's 14 GUE to do a transaction, right? So it's low already, and if you get any kind of upgrade from the Ethereum gods, where they reduce fees by 8x, which that's been on the table now for a while, and they're calling for it next year, that's going to kind of shoot a hole in the can in terms of reasons why EHEX needs to die. Pulse Chain gets some of these benefits as well, right? So it's this 0.7 of a cent level was called by Crypto Sniper a long time ago, like way back here in May. It's just amazing that like the accuracy of that call and how long that took to play out. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to show these guys was like how Hex is kind of playing out similarly to something like what Cardano did back in the day. So this is the Cardano chart. The price back in January of 18, which this chart here on Bittrex doesn't go back for all the data, but it was up here where this white line is. So back in 2018, they reached a peak of $1.37, and it declined all the way down here, bounced, and then all the way down here, bounced, and then in COVID, the capitulation low for this coin was 0.1 of a cent. Can you believe that? It's like, wow, dude. And then so on this particular chart, if you count that bottom, you're up 300,000% from that 0.1 of a cent low all the way to the $3.10 high. So it's a question of, can Hex do a move like this? We've seen it before now I think XRP's had amazing moves in the past, but this is great. This is a great example because this is a second cycle. So like Cardano's first cycle, it literally like chopped down here, made a low, and then bounced, and then bam, it went to like $1.37, and then it crashed down, and then you could see what happened from there. And so I think in Hex terms, we're in this period potentially.
Yeah, it's just a little more drawn out than just a wick. Yeah. That's on a 1 week chart. Wick on the 1 week chart. So it's a little bit more drawn out.
You mean Cardano did over 300x from the bottom?
Yeah.
from the wick low on Bittrex. It's not the norm because a lot of the other coins didn't go that low. They went down to like just sub penny, like right around like this level. But on this particular chart, yes.
Well, I wasn't even looking at the down there. I was looking up before it did the big dip.
At the candle close.
Yeah, that's at least 300x, right?
Yeah, this is 11,000. Well, this is 11,500%.
11,000. Okay.
14,000 from the wick low. But here, I mean, if you would have caught any bit of this wick, sub penny, when you're looking at dollar price targets, by the way, you know, Pulse Hex is at a penny right now. So you're at that point where if it goes below it, it could be a godly buy, right? If it all does well.
So a 300x of any crypto isn't out of the question, really.
Oh yeah. I mean, what's that? That's a penny right now on PHEX. So that's 100x gets you to $1, $3 for the 300x.
Wow.
So
If you made a buy.
We'll give these guys a little bit of alpha here. It's just something that they might not see here that we'll give them. All right. So which is the white line is the all-time high for Cardano back at the beginning when it had its first cycle. Notice how price action comes up to that level, resisted, tries to break down a new, resisted, fails to hold the support, breaks below again, and then finally it gets its blow off phase, which was. But the general theme here is that look at how much time it's spent fighting that all-time high. So perhaps Hex is not that much different in the next cycle, where we do see resistance at the all-time high on perhaps one of the hexes.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. The 40 to 50 cent range being a big chop zone.
Keep in mind that if you sell at like say this is 56 cents and you sell here, you're missing out on a 6x all the way to $3 in this case. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like this move doesn't look like much here, but that's like a multi-dollar move. This top was $3.10, and you could have been stuck selling somewhere around here at $1.30, $1.40.
Yep. And for playing that from an LP perspective is a little bit easier on V3 because you can do single-sided positions, but playing that, trying to exit with V2 liquidity is a little bit more tricky because you gotta be, you can't just set the range that you want to sell in. You kind of have to have a little more foresight and set your liquidity ahead of time and then pull out when the time is right. So it's a little more difficult. But I'll be going over that this weekend. It's
going to be fun to be LPing in a parabolic bull market like this.
Oh yeah,
it really is.
Oh, yeah. It's like just stacks on top of the appreciating value of your assets. It's gonna be crazy.
Like if you want to do some work for this, or if you want us to do the work for you, like come sign up for the course that we're going to do on cycle theory. But if you don't want to do that, then just come in here and do some analysis on different cryptos and see what the retracements looked like in terms of where you could find opportunity for LPing, right? This was a 50% retracement over 63 days. This one was a 20%, 30%, depending on the wick low, over 28 days. This was anywhere from 23 to 16% dip over like 14 to 21 days. And then, of course, you have this period up here near the highs. Lots of opportunity. This is a weekly chart, so it kind of condenses the data down, but there's lots of opportunity in here. Do good LP strats.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely not going to be any shortage of opportunities to, make some extra income on the side with your coins. And then PulseX is going to be really nice because you can do it with two coins that are correlated together, so you're still able to get a decent amount of the price move, even though you're experiencing a permanent loss.
I see a comment in here. I want to buy EHEX, but the BankX got me thinking otherwise. It's such a good price right now, though. Dude. That's all the BankX thing is FUD. We've seen this before in Bitcoin. Look up the slang of the God bear whale. It was a moment in Bitcoin's history where the price was being suppressed by one user who had hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, and he continued to dump it over and over and over. But eventually, one day, they were able to basically get rid of all the rest of his coins and move the price chart up. And so, yeah, it's a group like that can suppress price for some time, but at these prices, they don't have that much power. They have like $5.5 million of hex right now, which isn't make or break if they wanted to start market selling.
Yeah.
it will keep the price down in terms of like nobody's going to step in and pump the price if they know that someone's just going to dump into them without some sort of a strategy going in. So it's only temporary, and I'm sure they'll get something worked out in terms of a market an OTC buy or something.
The nice part is that even though EHEX is like a pretty juicy price right now to scoop up a decent amount, but like being worried about the BankX thing, like just say you are, PHEX really isn't that far away from it in price. Like it's not that crazy. It's like what, 30%. So it's like you're still getting a pretty good deal on PHEX if you want to just wait it out until the BankX people. So that BankX situation, we have some more clarity on it. Yeah, like you're still getting a pretty good deal on PHEX at like 1.1 cent.
I know one thing, like, so a couple things we'll talk now about the combined hex prices, and then I want to talk to Crispy Man about what he's seeing in like the hex staking between the two chains, because like fundamentally what's going to drive this whole ecosystem when the dust settles is going to be the underlying APYs of what I think is going to run all the value is going to come back into hex staking. So there's going to be opportunities on one chain or the other. But first I wanted to touch on this new chart. Crispy made one of these as well, but I like this one because it really shows you the double bottom here, or the double top. So like this is combined value of EHEX plus PHEX. Current price, it says, is 1.826. I might want to refresh it because this is from earlier. Let's see. So like you can see, you won't get this data on a regular Ethereum hex chart or a Pulse hex chart. You need to see them combined like this. This is a clear double top. So like the combined values of the two hexes came up all the way, just like from big payday, and it didn't go up here to the high at 11 cents, but it came up and made a double top, which was previously resistance around 6.7 cents for the combined value. And then everything after that seems to have been arbitrage and just extraction of liquidity out of both sides, whether it be Pulse, PulseX, Inc., PHEX, or EHEX. Like they just all been extracted away. Because of lots of different reasons. There's people that been holding off for 2 years waiting for this, and they want their money out, or people looking for ARB opportunities between the hexes, or all kinds of different scenarios. And but I just wanted to point that out because like it's cool that we can see here that it was a technical double top and an ugly double bottom. So this had just as equal amount of going higher here as it did as going lower. It's just unfortunate that the market shows down. So then we can talk about Crispy Man, if you want to touch on some of these charts too. I'll just kind of scroll through them while we have a conversation about different things. I'm noticing here that the percent locked is low compared to recently. You're muted.
Yep. You there, buddy? I think you're muted.
I'm muted. I'm muted, and I was telling you I wasn't talking anyways.
Oh.
I have a new chart set that I've been putting together. But yeah, just in terms of staking, that might be a better one to look at, because you already looked at the price chart. But I can pull it up on this end if you want.
Pull it up.
But yeah, the information's it's pretty interesting. I'm going to try to get the charts that I'm going to show over here, but it's now I've been combining them, so I can get them both at one time. Let me do a quick share.
Look at that reduction in holders on the east side.
It's pretty crazy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it looks more dramatic than it is, but I'll show you what I've got going with this. Let's see if this window will show up for you.
Yep, I'll pull it up. There you go.
All right, so we're talking about adoption, so let's go to staker charts first. I'll try to make these get over to the public site, but what we've seen from the fork, all of this is pretty explainable, right? You can really kind of understand how it happened. But staker adoption is up on Pulse, but it's coming down on Ethereum, right? And maybe a little bit flat on Ethereum at this point. So depending how you're looking at the numbers, right, they can look pretty different. But this is what's happening, and this is beginning to reflect short stakers and smaller stakers at the moment favoring Pulse Chain. versus Ethereum side, right? So we're beginning to see that. So that's happening. What's interesting is we go, look, this is pretty brutal when I pull this one up. I thought it was, anyways. You look at the holder chart.
Just speculation here. Do you think that the Ethereum staking participation will increase when gas fees are reduced and or Ethereum hex price rises at a rapid rate?
Yes, and also when APY rises at a rapid rate. But all of this could happen. None of them could happen, and maybe a couple happen all at the same time. Don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that might be the case. I see getting a little bit of ribbing in the chat about my thinking on EHEX, and I am going to do an explainer on how to end your stakes on EHEX and move whatever you have left over to Pulse Chain. I'm going to do that explainer for those who need it to kind of show them how to do it. So yeah, it's going to be all over the place. Now holders here. And I think it's germane to probably looking at some of these charts anyways. So just looking at holders, you can see we really did peak coming into the fork, right? And a little bit after the fork, because people were looking to move all sorts of hex over to the Pulse chain. At least that's my thinking. And then also getting ready to enter the farm. And then afterwards, as people chased the shiny things and went down, they went off in different directions with it. You can see that the holders of hex really dropped down on both chains.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's interesting now is you are seeing a little bit of residual effect in that on the Ethereum chain. We're still seeing the holders go up.
That's cool.
Which is kind of weird, right? Considering the
kind of strange.
Yeah, a little strange. And then, but on the Pulse side, you're seeing the holders go down. So I guess it's going to be a matter of time. It may take 6 months to a year for all this to play out. Okay, and so see what might happen with all this.
I guess that does make a little bit of sense in that you kind of have to go through ETH first before you can get to Pulse Chain. So people may be buying Hex on Ethereum, bridging it over, and doing some swaps potentially. Maybe. Yep. I don't know. Yep. Though they would just probably bridge their ETH or stable coins over. But
yeah, there's a lot of ways we could chase this down, try to figure it out. But I'm not sure how valuable it is. But we'll look at the numbers at a high level anyways to see what's happening with them, and then to kind of wrap up adoption for what I have so far on the holders. We are continuing to increase the number of holders day over day, so of unique holders, and we're up 3.64% since the fork.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive by itself. About a month out, and then to have 3.6 more. Now, of course, I'm not doing any detailed analysis on average quantity held or anything like that. So these are just really, really raw numbers, but they kind of point us into a direction. What we have been seeing, though, is as we've been looking at this and we start to see the, I did a stream today on penalties and kind of going over those today, but as we've been seeing the share rate change, as well as the number of shares starting to affect the system. So I'll try to get to the right page here. So we definitely are at a higher number of T shares on the Pulse side versus Ethereum. Both are still overall trending downwards if we were to look longer than just the launch period, because of course Pulse inherited the Ethereum side. But I do expect this gap to continue to widen between the two of them. Time will tell. We'll see. We're also beginning to see that the payouts are pulling apart on average, but on these early charts, hard to see the difference between them. But I'll show you an API chart in a moment. So these are beginning to separate. So it makes sense. Different numbers of T shares, different dynamics going on. So you have different numbers of payouts. Penalties have been kind of weird and different. I did a analysis on this today where, essentially, I don't think this means much to us right at the moment. I mean, of course, it means something to us on a daily basis because getting, more payout is good for miners, but I don't think it's significantly affecting the system. at the moment. And that's because when I combine the two and I take the average and I compare it to the overall average of Hex all time, I can come up with a number of different averages. And yes, we did have an increase in the number of emergency end stakes, maybe, and the amount. Very clear on the screen. You can see where we had these penalties come out, but on average, not too different than reality normally for us, right? So when we look at the 28-day average, it looks like it's going up, trending up, but the 7 days back down. And so if everybody decides to go emergency end stake on EX, then they'll go up. So guys, if you want to change this chart and make it go up, go emergency end stake. That's
Chris.
not financial advice.
Crispy, we got a super chat just for you, buddy.
I know.
So meth, Mr. Crispy. Okay, now give us the truth.
He's gonna have to ask the question again. I don't know which truth he wants.
I think he's talking about. Let's see. He was talking about. This. I wasn't worried about BankX news as Crispy already gave me his fork analysis. Get out in terms of EHEX.
Yeah. That's right. That's my story. That's what I'm sticking to it. Right.
Yeah.
It goes either way. You know. Actually, I guess I'll take credit for that later if that ends up being the right idea. But if it turns
I appreciate it, Hex Crystal Meth.
Yes. Thank you, Hex Crystal Meth.
Great name.
All right. So yeah. So we'll try to go through some more of this. I gather that Hex Crystal Meth is solidly in the Pulse Hex camp only, as what I took back from this exchange. But yeah. So things are happening, and some of what we expect to see is happening just on plan, the way we expected it. So you're beginning to see the penalties change. You can see the payout per T share. It's kind of varying a little bit. But the share rates are going up as expected, kind of in tandem. So the real change we have is these really, really, really small numbers that have to do with APY. And what we're beginning to see is that the stakes on the Ethereum chain, the residual stakes on the Ethereum chain, are tending to be of a higher number of days staking length, while the on the Pulse chain they're a little bit lower. Again, I don't know that statistically you can really say this is a big difference, yet. But we're going to watch this to see how these move around and change. And then when we look at I'll go to the APY chart. We look at the APY chart. When you look at this, there's not a whole lot of difference. I mean, it is a point difference between 39.98 in a day and 38.8. So I've had to go all the way to text and kind of look at it in this fashion. And these are the APYs for new stakers. So if you were coming in, this is what my estimate is based on what we've seen so far on Pulse Chain, or since the fork. What I'm going to pay particular attention to are the 30 days and the Cuatro Cincos. And there's reasons for that. But we are beginning to see a difference in APY now. So on the Ethereum side, the APY is going up. And on the... so overall APY, the larger trend, APY and Hex goes down over time. That's the larger trend for new stakes. But within that downwards trend, we're seeing that the APY on the Ethereum side going down less than the Pulse side. And this is a direct reflection to there being more T shares on the Pulse side now. And because there are more T shares, right, there's going to be less ROI for the same types of payout. And because there's less ROI, your APY is going to be less as well. So I think that one of the things that could happen to counter what's happening within the system, it depends on a lot of things, but if we see a large enough separation for short stakers where they can earn significantly more APY, they may opt for Ethereum chain. Now,
I think that's interesting.
Is that 5% more, 20% more, 1%? I don't know. But you look at it this way: at the moment, at this current moment, I feel very comfortable that I can end my Ethereum stake, move it to Pulse Chain, and swap it for something else, right? So I have a way out, right? So I feel very comfortable that I can do that. So I don't feel like going into Ethereum and staking is dangerous yet. Maybe it will become dangerous. I don't know. But I know I can. I know there's liquidity. So at the moment, this is how I feel about it and what I see. So the reverse is also true. I mean, why wouldn't I, if I have a million hex, look at moving it to Ethereum? I still have the same problem with tax reporting and stuff like that for me, because I'd have to do a swap, right? But potentially I might send it over to Ethereum. And what would really goad me into doing that? I would do that if I was going to get enough passive income over a short period of time to do it. So you look at these guys trying to earn $1,000, trying to do $1,000 a month with their stakes, right? And as far as passive income, and they're doing pretty large stakes. Well, that's tough to do at 0.7%. But later on, maybe if we're at 5%, maybe it's a lot easier. And why
Yeah.
wouldn't I do that? Anyways, I think we might see some things like that. So I'll be watching 30 Days and Quattro Cinco, because the other thing is, if I believe in both of them long term, and you don't have to, guys, right? I mean, you do whatever you want to do. But if somebody believes in it long term, believes in both of them long term, already there's a 6% difference in the estimated ROI, and that's probably conservative. So what happens when that's 100% difference, 50% difference, right? Wouldn't you be thinking about that? Because the fiat value is the same fiat value, right? When you come in, it's the same fiat value if you're new or bring a new value. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think this is like really kind of was predictable, I guess. Like kind of we figured, more users on Pulse Chain, shorter stake lengths, cheaper to transact, and then on ETH we thought, like more expensive to transact, bigger stakes, bigger players, bigger APYs. So it's like the big dogs play on ETH, and then the little guys are kind of playing on Pulse. Not to say that there isn't big guys on Pulse as well, but it'll be a mixture over there.
Yeah. If you're playing with $1,000, you're probably gonna be playing on Pulse Chain, not Ethereum.
Yeah, assuming you know how to work
Bridge
a
it,
bridge,
yeah.
how to do DeFi, so that's
Yeah.
kind of one of the big sticking points
It's
for the Pulse Chain ecosystem right now.
it's almost like if you know all of that stuff, typically people who are that deep into DeFi and stuff are playing with a little bit more money than like the average, like, oh, let me just throw $500 in and see what happens kind of thing. Because like you have at least a intellectual investment in it. Yeah. But
Yeah.
thanks for sharing all that, Chris. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I'll flash this up to you guys, 'cause I don't know if you've seen this one or not, but so to your conversation about ink, one of the things I'm finding very interesting, and I think I suggest that people do this anyways, maybe value your entire portfolio on Pulse and just keep track of your Pulse score, because the dollar values throw you way off, or they throw me off anyways. So here's a great example. This is ink in both terms of Pulse as well as USD. And, the USD's gone down a lot further percentage wise than the number of Pulse per, and so day over day, I'm looking at big changes value wise, but I only went from like 147 Pulse per ink to 139 Pulse for a whole dollar change, in the ink. And so this has been helping me understand just how to value some of the things I have a little bit better.
Yeah, it's no joke. I think a lot of the TA that I'm doing, we always have to look at the Pulse ratio first. It's the most important chart. The game that crypto people play is, against the native underlying layer one, right? That's the game that we play. Even when you're looking at for example, back on the Ethereum side, when you're looking at hex performance, you really want to measure it in Ethereum more than you want it against the dollar, especially at this point, because you'd be getting a completely different story. Back on Pulse side, same thing. When you're talking about ink and Pulse X performance, measure them in Pulse, and you get a better idea.
Well, back when we got a chance to swap, I've been watching that too, and somebody wrote it here in the chat. You know, the cost of Hex and Pulse has gone up pretty high.
Mhm.
Of course, we're talking about the on the Ethereum side. Um, if we go look at that real quick, I mean, I don't know what it is right now, 133 Pulse. And so remember when people were giving Abit a little bit of crap? So, you know, I talk to Abit sometimes, and I talked to him and Patrick during
Mhm.
the swap period. I also had concurred with that approach, right? I bought a ton of, or swapped for a ton of Pulse X, and I did it at 100.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people like, oh, this is crazy, everything's bad. Well, I also swapped a little bit later, but swapped for EHEX, right? And I did, and so I got a higher amount. But when I look at the two of them now, even though the EHEX is down and the PHEX is up, I'm still equal. It's kind of weird, you know, how it actually turned out. But on the hex side, it looks golden, you know, meaning hex on pulse chain. It just keeps going up. I still think we need a lot of time to kind of see how this settles out. What the market really thinks it's going to be. Are we going to be 50% ratio, 35%? I don't know.
Well, we do really need to see how everything performs when like money actually starts flowing in. Like right now, everything's just kind of settled and, um, you know, not a lot of action happening. But Pulse Chain and all these assets, or at least the conglomeration of assets, hasn't existed in a real strong uptrend yet. So we won't have all the data until basically a whole cycle to kind of be able to really analyze like what are the relationships of all these tokens to each other. We gotta get all of that data before we can make definitive statements. Until
Mhm.
then, it's all in the air. There's
Yeah, I mean,
speculation on
you
fundamentals.
can't know. There's elements we can't know, and one of them is, you know, is Ethereum going to get cheaper? When is it going to get cheaper? Or and like, what's the downstream effects of that, for example? Or is all this supply that on one chain that's not favored going to get put in diamond hands, and then it creates more headroom for price later?
Mhm.
There's just so many different things that you really do need time to let the market decide. If you want to pull up my screen share for a sec, I'm going to show you the
Yeah.
how well PHEX has performed on the price chart versus Pulse, right? So PHEX is tremendously strong off that 100 pulse per hex level. It's coming up. It's at about a 44% run, up as high as 51% in 20 days, and it's really showing its relative strength to the rest of the assets on Pulse right now. I haven't really looked too far deeper on like what's Hedron and Icosa look like against Pulse, or what's I know Pulse X is also rising. Let's see, where's that at here? Pulse X is also kind of chopped sideways, but I guess it looks topped for now. But it was rising against Pulse X was rising against Pulse for some time. Now it's kind of looking kind of weak, but yeah, I mean these are the pairs to watch, man. The Pulse pairs. Ink. Ink Pulse. Yeah, look how far Ink is down relative to Pulse in dollar terms. Just crazy. But then if you look at it against Pulse, it doesn't look so bad. It looks like it's basically went flat since June 6th
Mm-hmm.
for the most part.
What's it versus PLSX? Do you have that?
PLSX Pulse?
Ink Ink
Oh,
PLSX.
Oh, yeah, this is an interesting. Go ahead and say your bid on that dynamic while I pull that up.
Yeah. So of all the coins in the RH ecosystem, like they're all pretty distinct from one another fundamentally. Like even like EHEX, PHEX, like they're different contracts. Even though they're the same function, they're like different contracts on different blockchains. And then like Pulse is like the gas token of Pulse is the gas token of Pulse chain. But Pulse X and Ink are two sides of the same coin in that they're both derive their value from the same thing, the Pulse X DEX, right? So like Pulse X is the thing that gets bought and burned from the fees that are accumulated, and Ink is the faucet or the reward that is given to people who provide liquidity, which you need to have the buy and burn in the first place. So these two have a synergistic relationship to each other. And that, in my opinion, is pretty cool and pretty interesting when you try to value them relative to each other. And also, and I have a whole section in the course about this, but what are the implications of pairing those two together in a liquidity pool, where you're almost like in a lot of ways pairing like one side of the coin to the other side of the coin, right? So it's like PulseX gets bought and burned, Ink gets distributed, but like you're pairing them both in the pool so they could both get the benefit of both, right? Like that is the most interesting that is the most interesting pool in the farms, in my opinion.
Yeah, so this is PulseX measured in ink. So PulseX has done nothing but go up against ink for 24th of May. So why would you think that is?
Easy answer: static supply versus inflationary supply, and a little bit more native buy pressure with a buy and burn. Plus, there's a decent amount of dumping of incentive because most people don't value it right now. So that would make sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with all that too.
Yeah. Did you have a? Yeah, go ahead, Crispy.
It's funny that now is the time people who are in the know are accumulating it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with ink. So like the time you want to accumulate it is those times where it's like really, really low in price and lost a lot of value relative to everything else. I mean, like that's obvious. Like buy when things are low and undervalued. That's when you should buy it. But it's really powerful with ink in that when you consider its fixed inflationary schedule. But this was what I was saying earlier. A dip in the incentive token early is not the same as a dip in the incentive token later, right? Because as time goes on, more of the supply is out. So a person who wants to accumulate the token doesn't want to accumulate an early dip because that's only going to be a percentage of the total supply that's coming out later. So if you buy a dip on day 30, and then you wait and there's another dip on day 90, well, that's 3x the number of tokens that exists, more or less, because 3x the amount of time has gone by from time point 0. So a 90% dip at 30 days, you can't accumulate the same percentage of the future total supply, as you can at the day 90.
Yeah, I think this gives a huge credence to why there will be floors on the prices of this ecosystem.
Yeah. Exactly. There will be a time where there's a significant dip in ink where you can get a large percentage of it. Well, let me say there will be. Well, yeah, there will be a specific dip where you can get a large percentage of the total supply, where if somebody scoops it up, you'll never have that opportunity again. Ever.
Right. Well, yeah, I think for analyzing this one, playing a little game with us instead of looking at dollar value, look at how can you accumulate the most and why. And that's really the game that's being played. Price will come later. So the thing is how much can you accumulate? Because I can see it even my little tiny farms. I've got the one tractor, driving around the field there, right? And so I get an ink that rolls out of one of the farms, right? Well, it pales in comparison to the hundreds, right? That some people are getting. And then a little bit later, APY is going down a little bit. Now, some of that has to do with cost, but in general, liquidity is also rising. So now I'm getting less and less in the future. And so maybe I stop mining for a while and I come back, or stop farming for a while and come back. Later on, I'll have no ability to generate any ink for myself. Right. So unless I've been accumulating, as far as playing the game, right, my stack is never going to be as high as someone else's that's doing a lot more farming. And so that is definitely setting up a situation for when the time comes for a price pump for those folks who own the most. Maybe they don't let it go so easy. And so it's doubly rare. Not to mention, the possibility that it actually is used as some sort of governance token.
Yeah. And the people who are able to dominate the ink PLSX and ink pulse pool are going to be the people who have ink. Like you can't dominate the pool without ink.
Right.
So this to me spells across the whole ecosystem, Hart's Law will come into effect, and it's going to come after a huge consolidation into diamond hands. That's kind of where we're at.
Yep.
All right, guys.
And not just Oh yeah, not diamond hands, not just because they like it, but diamond hands because they can get an income from it. That's all. But yeah, I think we did a good, cool hour and 20 minutes. What do you think, guys?
I think so.
Sounds good to me, man. I think we touched on a
Yeah.
lot of the stuff that was important.
Yeah. Well, let me
Obviously,
pull
price
up.
action is unpredictable because we haven't for sure guaranteed a bottom on any of this stuff right now.
Mhm.
So just keep an eye on some of the things happening in the broader crypto space and beyond. And then, obviously these prices are extremely low relative to what we've seen in the past. So it's very low risk, high reward at this point. In my mind, people will see these low prices as high risk, but it's actually the opposite. There's much less risk now because of the upside potential from these levels on any of the assets. And you don't have to pick and choose one or the other. You just, you could buy a basket, right?
Yeah. If you want, just pick one. Just pick one that you like the most and just focus all of your economic energy in there. And then you can always diversify it out later. You don't have to make the decision right when you're making the buy.
A lot of that speculation comes down to is Pulse going to pump first, yes or no,
Yep.
and then go from there.
Yep. All right. Before we head out, let's take a look. Just give you guys the info. So our liquidity course is going to start this Saturday. It's at 11 a.m. Correct? 11 a.m.
11 a.m.
EST.
start time EST.
Yep. And it's going to be 3 hours the first day and 4 hours the second day. I'll be giving the first presentation. So if this is something you're interested in, if you want to learn more about V2, V3 liquidity providing, and a lot more about this Ink Pulse X stuff that I've been talking about, I know Axis has a great presentation himself where he goes through the history of all the liquidity on the hex. I'm sure he's added some pretty cool stuff in addition to that. If this is something you're interested in, guys, last couple days to book your slot. We would love to see you in there. Axis, you want to say anything on that?
Looking forward to it, man. The last one was super successful. We had like 125 people sign up. People were banging down the door, and most everyone walked away pretty happy with that and with actionable intel leading into that downtrend that came after that. So people like Crypto Vince from the Hex community, long-standing community member, and Cryptographics and others were, big bag holders were in there, and they all had good things to say. So if you're interested in learning about liquidity providing on both sides of the chain and being ahead of it in terms of V3 on the Ethereum side, or knowing what's coming down the pipe with V4, or just general like strategy, or want a deeper understanding of how to allocate your portfolio, or what the kind of the strategies like some of these like higher net worth Hex users do to track the chain from a chain analytics perspective to really have a good finger down on the pulse of what's happening. Make sure you sign up for the course, man. It's gonna be epic.
Yeah. Hey,
Crypto millionaire.
Corey, yeah. I made tens of thousands from this course. Yeah, you can. I think anybody who was in the course, was able to make back the money that it costs to get into the course pretty easily, from the information that they got on their own, also from some of the calls that we made in terms of downside price action, where you could set liquidity where there would be potential high volumes. So, this, not only that, but I really do believe this information is incredibly important to learn now before major price appreciation moves happen, because it's going to be really difficult to try to understand the basics when things are euphoric and moving fast. You want to have the knowledge ahead of time to be able to execute during the times of opportunity. And now is the best time to learn and understand these concepts as best as you can, at least in my opinion. Yep. And then one more thing in addition to that, guys, I would appreciate it if you go to my new website, cryptosloth.info. I'm going to be launching some stuff myself soon. So if you want to get in on that early, please drop your email in there and you will be notified. I'll put it in the chat. It's cryptosloth.info. And you'll see I changed my name right here. Go there, sign your email up. I'm pretty much just going to be hosting a lot of stuff that I do there, writing blog posts, as a central hub for all the content I produce. So if you want in on that, I would greatly appreciate it if you joined.
And don't forget about lookintohedron.com, please.
Yeah. Oh,
and hopefully we get Pulse integration on there soon.
oh yeah. Actually, I've forgotten about that. I need to do that at some point. We just have the Ethereum side. I gotta let all the. I think Alex just posted in the chat some new updates on like where you can pull the data from. So I gotta work that out at some point. Thanks for reminding me, Axis.
You bet. All right, guys.
All
Hopefully we
right.
see you in the LP course this weekend. Don't forget.
Yep.
Also, not to jump the ship too far, but you know, the three of us are going to be running a market cycles course later in the summer too. So that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm really
Yeah,
looking
I'm
forward to
straight.
that one too. So yeah, LP course for the strategies and market making for when to do the strategies. All right, guys. Hey, Crispy, Axis, I appreciate your time. It was fun chatting with you as always.
Thank you.
Everybody in the chat, peace.
See you later.
See you guys.